Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Hey, what's going on, Trey? What are you working on?
What's up, Wes? We got a new show. We're going to talk about a better mousetrap. So it's a shortened phrase, just like a lot of the phrases over time that have been shortened, but just have some fun with it.
Oh, that's cool. Speaking of phrases, have you ever heard Tony say one half does the other? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the real phrase is 6 to 1. So you call it 6, the other person a half dozen to the other. So 6 to 1, half dozen to the other.
One person call it a half dozen, one person would call it 6.
Tomato, tomato.
The way Tony says it, it doesn't really make any sense.
It makes 0 sense.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and 6-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, financial fiduciary and retirement planning specialist, Tony Walker. And as always, we've got to give kudos to America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, helping produce the show, along with Louisville's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Again, hope we're enjoying the new format. We are recording this show on June 18th, 2024. And as you probably heard or saw from the introduction, we're talking about better mousetraps. And these mousetraps can actually being potentially a negative thing. But to help us with this subject matter, because he's the one that kind of came up with it today, come on in is our own Trey Juergens, my favorite son-in-law and financial fiduciary. So, Trey, first of all, thanks for helping with the outline of this show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And so I think we've already talked about it, but tell the audience why you came up with this particular topic.
Yeah, so when you go to the website to reach out to just look into us helping you with your situation, you fill out a lot of the time that Let's Get Started form. It provides you a little opportunity to tell us what's going on. We had a gentleman say he's always looking for a better mousetrap. And for me, that was like light bulb moment. We got to talk about this on the show. So that's why we're here.
And I'll have 6 bullet points on mousetraps that can actually get you in trouble and why savers tend to seek those mousetraps. Some of them good, some of them bad. But I think you and Wes were poking a little fun at one of my sayings. What's the saying I always share? And
well, you always love a good saying, but one you've always used, I think I've known you now 14 plus years, is a half dozen the other. And that's half of a saying that doesn't really even make sense without the initial part.
That's called a Dick Walkerism.
Yeah, exactly,
you realize that, don't
exactly.
you?
6 to 1 or half dozen to the other means it's the same thing, whether you call it 6 or half dozen.
And I learned something today. But it's funny, though, real quickly, in the essence of time, beauty is only skin deep. The full saying, you want to read that?
Beauty's only skin deep, but ugly goes clean to the bone. And then another, Wes and I looked at this one. Rome wasn't built in a day. Everybody knows that saying. Yeah. However, the full saying is Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour.
Interesting. Oh, that's kind of funny. So a little bit about what we're going to cover today. And again, I've got 6 bullet points coming up, but share with us today, again, the outline you've put together.
Yeah, so the origin comes from the gentleman always seeking a better mousetrap. He's approaching retirement. He's been handling his own finances, but he's just wanting to make sure there's not a better mousetrap out there. So that Emerson quote, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door.
Oh,
that's
okay.
The full quote. So it's just talking about innovation and something out there to set yourself away from competition. And I think you, with our process and truly defining retirement planning, have done that. So what we're kind of seeing is banks, Wall Street, all these players are trying to get into retirement planning and try to provide that mousetrap, but not necessarily can do it.
Well, that's like you said, it is funny now that I reflect back on really started focusing on retirement planning right after 9/11. But yeah, there wasn't much written about it. I wrote books about it. I tried to learn as much as I could. And now all of a sudden you've got all these experts who are now in the fold. And like you said, introducing a lot of these mousetraps. We've talked about even articles about annuities. Mm-hmm. I mean, Wall Street, for the first time ever, they've bashed those products for years. They're acting like they've come up with this idea that you ought to maybe consider annuities so you won't run out of money.
Yeah, so those are really the 3 main things that have kind of created this boom in retirement planning. The first one being the demographic shift. There's 10,000 savers turning 65 every day in the United States. Number two, the shift from pension plans to 401ks. And that final one being just uncertainty and vulnerability in the market and turning to someone to maybe let them plan retirement.
Yeah, I met with a gentleman yesterday, he and his wife. They've been in before several times, and they finally decided to move forward. And I think that's what they felt like. They felt like the Mousetrap with their advisor, who they've worked with for years, they don't have a problem with, but the Mousetrap is, it's always another Mousetrap. And they're like, we just want a plan. We're tired of chasing all these Mousetraps. So, folks, when I come back, what I'm going to do, and we've worked on this together, but we've come up with the 6 most common Mousetraps that savers tend to gravitate to when they're looking for a worry-free retirement. Good stuff coming your way. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon. Up until the tragic events of 9/11, I was focused in my practice on what we call products. I thought there was a magic bullet out there. I would get annuities, mutual funds, whatever, and it was all about products, again, until they flew into those buildings and all these products kind of came crashing down. So what I decided to do after the events of 9/11 was to create a process. What I decided to do at that time was focus solely on retirement planning and solely on savers. And I knew that I could not depend solely on products, but I had to have a process first, then get the products. So what we do in this process, it's a 5-step process, and it begins with clarifying your vision. And clarifying your vision means we sit down for that first appointment. We have something called a starter kit that I will personally go through with you to make sure I understand what you're trying to accomplish and your expectations of us should you decide to work with Tony Walker Financial. The next point, and this is a game changer, this is our proprietary software. This is where we assess your situation. This is where the money part comes in and trying to understand how much money you will have to be worry-free in retirement based on your current assets. The third step, and this was really kind of a problem, we called it the commitment phase. That's when somebody says, all right, Tony, I'm ready to do business with Tony Walker Financial. We now have changed that over to what we call the onboarding phase, meaning that's when somebody elects to do business with us. We have people specializing within our staff that will come in, meet with you, make sure we have all the statements that you've got correct, what's going to move over, what's not, names of all your beneficiaries for family information. All of that's accurate before we move to the fourth step, which is called the implementation phase, which where the money then comes over to either Charles Schwab and or the different insurance companies we use for our annuities. We do all of that. We do all of the heavy lifting. Again, folks, this is why I have so much staff that can handle all of the business we create. The fifth step, this is called monitor your progress. This is how we make sure you're staying on track with the original game plan. Now, the reason I go into all this, these 5 steps, I've noticed over the years since creating this process, more and more financial advisors, institutions, if you look at their wording, this is all very similar. So while anybody can say they have a process, how do we maintain the assurance of our clients that we are handling things and keeping you on track? Well, it's this wonderful staff. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. For an independent retirement planning firm, I would argue that we have more service professionals than anybody in the country in terms of a ratio to advisors. So we have myself, Heather, Trey, and Wes. Those are the 4 advisors, fiduciaries. We're all on a salaried basis. We don't work on a commission basis. All of those commissions from insurance contracts go into the firm and are divvied up to take care of all of our overhead. But look at all the other staff. These are there to service the plan and service the business. They are on call whenever you need us. You're not going to have to call these 1-800 numbers and deal with all these companies. You deal with a face that looks familiar and is assigned to help you with specific tasks as you need it. So this is the way to go, folks. If you're a saver and you feel like you're not getting the personal attention to detail you need, give us an opportunity to talk to you. I think you'll be very happy that you did. So we're going to use an example here of how does this process work at Tony Walker Financial when you're thinking about rolling over your 401k plan to us. And let's assume maybe you've met with other advisors, nice folks out there, and they've talked about this process they have and how they're going to do things. Again, as we've mentioned before, many people are starting to duplicate or try to copy what we've been doing for years. So it's one thing to say you have a process. It's another thing to have the staff to be able to fulfill the commitments involved in having a process. So what happens here? So let's say you have a $300,000 401k. Well, before you invest it anywhere, hopefully somebody is clarifying your vision of what do you want to do with this money. Folks, I've been doing this a long time. In fact, I've met with nearly 20,000 savers, and I can quickly clarify what somebody's wanting to do with that money. That's first off. If you get this wrong, the process falls apart. So I would personally do that, or one of our trained fiduciaries would handle that first meeting. Now, the second meeting is what we call our assessment. What we do on that is I take that information from the first meeting, we put that into our income planning software. I would be personally meeting with our department. We have a lot of people in our income planning department. Lisa Allerkamp is in charge of that department. They're going to put that assessment together. Again, this is absolutely free. In fact, I had somebody come in the other day and said, Tony, I can't believe you're just giving all this to us. We had an advisor the other day that wanted to charge us $1,000 before they'd show us anything, which to me, that's not much of a leap of faith. We're going to give you this for free. Now, the third step, we used to call this the commitment phase. Now it's called onboarding. When somebody says, okay, Tony, I am ready to move over my 401k to your plan through Tony Walker Financial, what do we do next? Well, that's the beauty of that. In fact, we have people assigned to doing just that. Onboarding means that we're going to verify all the statements you have, whether they're IRAs, Roths, after tax, where these monies are located, fees to get out of them, make sure we have all the updated beneficiary information, correct names. There's a lot that goes into that. That's called the onboarding step. Then once we have everything accurately documented, we call this the implementation stage. Implementation, and that's where our new business department, either through Charles Schwab or through our annuity new business department, they would come in to verify information, set up all the accounts, start moving all of the money either over to Charles Schwab or to the various annuities and life insurance contracts we might suggest. That's called the implementation. Now, here's where the process for most people breaks down. I think it's the most important step of all. It's monitor your progress. See, folks, retirement planning is just the beginning. You could have this plan for 30 or 40 years. One of you could be alive to do this. Plus, when you pass away, your kids are going to have to deal with this money and possibly the taxes of it. We have set up in place several employees whose only job is to monitor the progress. If something looks amiss for whatever reason, maybe there's been changes to somebody's retirement, one of the fiduciaries or even myself is going to get involved to make sure that you stay on track. So if you don't have a process like that, and mainly if you don't have a firm that has a large enough staff to keep up with your plan as you move through retirement, my question is, why not? Take advantage of meeting with me in person by phone. It's absolutely free. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. You can take advantage of this by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just click on that Let's Get Started button or arrange that phone call by calling 877-499-9255. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. When it comes to savers in search for a worry-free retirement and thinking there's a better mousetrap out there, I wanted to cover 6 of the most popular reasons we found that savers usually search for a better mousetrap. So let's start with reason number 1, and that is basically poor investment performance. So if a client's retirement portfolio consistently underperforms the market or does less than the client thinks it should have earned, or worse yet, the performance fails to meet the client's goals and spending objectives, then in many cases, the saver will seek another advisor who basically brags that they can outperform the market. As we can see from this snapshot of the stock market graphic, notice all the years that the market has actually gone down, which is no big deal, I guess, if you're working and you're years away from retirement. But here's what happens when you retire and the market collapses. As you can see, these balances go down drastically. So what happens when performance is down, of course, we tend to look to others for a better mousetrap, hoping they can outperform the market. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. All right, let's go to reason number 2, and that would be lack of communication and personal attention to detail. Folks, online calculators or one-pagers provided by an advisor, or worse yet, handing over your money to someone to manage yet never understanding what in the world they're charging in the way of fees, is a recipe for more worry. Again, as I like to say, those of us in the financial world are really not in the financial business, but first and foremost should be in the communication business. And if what we are communicating is way too difficult for you to understand, then again, you're going to create more worry, and it would be my advice to get a second opinion. The third reason someone might search for a better mousetrap is because of high fees and other costs associated with advisors who manage their money. In fact, look at this chart here. Look at the amount of money an advisor would make, whether you're making money or not. If they charge 1.5% a year, it's over $41,000, while the poor saver only made $26,000. In other words, they did better even when you did worse. This is why knowing the fees being charged and those fees being reasonable is imperative to creating a retirement plan that you can count on in the future. The number 4 popular mousetrap, lack of trust and confidence. We recently took on a new client who, after working for years with the same firm, before they retired, of course, realized that their advisor was not in the planning business at all, but appeared to be more in the selling business. As they described it, the advisor kept asking for more and more money while the poor old client just wanted a plan. In other words, the advisor kept pushing products, things like bonuses, things like higher rates of return, why the client hadn't moved all their money over, without ever delivering a process. You see, you've got to consider product true, but it's really the process that leads the show, not the product. Which is why I created this 5-step process that not only our clients can follow along, but our well-trained staff can as well. Remember, folks, it's not about the products. It's first about having a process in place that you can understand and monitor all the way through retirement. Here's a mousetrap I bet you hadn't thought about. Your advisor basically getting out of the business for whatever reason. In fact, check out this article. It's really interesting to note that many advisors will be retiring. Many advisors change firms. Unfortunately, some will die. And the question for you is, when this happens, not if, when this happens to your advisor, whenever it happens, what's going to happen to your money? Who's going to fill their shoes? And if they do fill their shoes, are they going to have the same philosophy, the same products? Is there a process in place? Probably not, which is why we have at Tony Walker Financial 3 highly trained fiduciaries who are salaried. Trained in what? They're trained in the worry-free retirement process. In fact, that's why we have this game plan software. So let's imagine something happens to Tony Walker. I'm no longer here. They will be able to handle your finances because we have the written game plan in place and because they're trained in the process. And finally, number 6, as my late great father used to always say, nothing stays the same. That's right, folks. I hate to tell you this, but your goals for the future will more than likely change at some point during retirement. I see this all the time as I meet on average. Remember, folks, I'm meeting people in the trenches. I meet on average 30 savers per week. I get to watch their lives play out. And the one thing I can tell you in retirement is this. At some point, things will change. You're eventually going to die. You're going to lose a spouse. Your health might take a turn for the worse. You might even have an adult child or a grandchild have to move in with you. You could be forced to help family members. And then one day, you're going to ultimately probably have to decide what to do about your housing, whether it's downsizing, assisted living, or possibly even going into a nursing home. All of these issues create change. Nothing will stay the same, and that's why you need a retirement planning firm with more than 20 years of experience in working with over 5,000 written game plans. Folks, we know what we're doing at Tony Walker Financial. If that's you right now, if you say, man, I'm tired of looking for all these better mousetraps, I just want to work with somebody I can trust, meet in person, and knows what the heck we're doing. To get started, all you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button, or you can call us 24/7 at the number at your screen, which is 877-499-9255. Well, speaking of better mousetraps, what does the Bible have to say about the ultimate mousetrap of religion versus following Jesus Christ? Well, I'm going to tell you about a trip I had to Ireland, and man, was it an eye-opener for me. Got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
So when I first started working with Tony Walker, Tony originally hired me for tax research primarily. Around that time in 2006 to about 2008, the annuity industry really started taking off. Back then, there were only a few annuities being offered by just a handful of companies. Since then, the industry has exploded. And one of the roles that I really still take a lot of ownership in is evaluating annuity companies and annuity contracts for our clients and what might be the best potential fit. So we look at things in terms of company ratings, what kind of service that annuity company provides, the benefits the contracts provide, just to get the best fit for clients.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, 403b, thrift savings account, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For almost 40 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Looking to roll over your 401k? Then log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and learn just how easy it is to roll over and safeguard your 401k. Do it today. Our show today focuses on the notion that as humans, we are constantly in search of something better, something coined as the better mousetrap. In searching for a better mousetrap, assuming we find it, there includes the possibility of ultimately forgetting who was responsible for helping us find whatever it is we're looking for in the first place. This search for a better mousetrap was on full display when I recently was able to financially afford to check something off my bucket list, a week-long golf trip to some of the nicest golf courses in Ireland. You know, as I traversed and played 5 different courses majestically created by God, with a little dash of what man added to perfect this rugged land to play golf on, I unfortunately found myself on one of these courses quickly disenchanted as my golf game literally fell off the cliff. Sadly, at a time when I should have been constantly thanking God for allowing me to enjoy the experience of playing golf in Ireland, the frustration and that feeling of desperation when playing poor golf suddenly took my mind off of God and squarely on trying to figure out why I had spent my hard-earned money chasing a golf ball around Ireland. Oh, speaking of God providing man with the landscape to create these wonderful courses, one of the courses we played was Tralee, a course famously designed by the late great golfer Arnold Palmer. Interesting, here's a pic of me and a guy by the name of Vincent who was sitting there watching the golf course play out and found out he was one of the original members of this golf course and met Mr. Palmer, who designed Tralee. Of course, Palmer attributed this beautiful golf course this way when he said this: "I may have designed the first 9, but surely God designed the back 9. This forgetting to thank God as the source of all that we have and instead putting on a pedestal those who really had nothing to do with it in the first place was on full display in Luke chapter 17, beginning in verse 12, where Jesus is walking through a random town when out of the blue, 10 lepers cry out to Jesus in hopes that he can provide a better mousetrap than where they find themselves in at this time. And only the way Jesus can. He heals them by commanding these 10 lepers to pay a visit to the local religious leaders. After being healed, much to Jesus' dismay, of the 10 who received God's mercy as the source of the healing, only 1 gives credit to Jesus. So what happened to the other 9? The same thing that can easily happen to us when God's grace is on full display. We quickly forget that it is God who is the source of all great things, not man. And while the beauty of Ireland and the opportunity to play some of these great golf courses reminds me of the wonders of God's grace and His coming kingdom, Scripture reminds believers that the kingdom of God does not come through observation of what God created, but only through faith in the one who provided it in the first place. So remember this truth, Christian. The next time you forget who should get credit for all that you and I have to be thankful for, and if you find yourself feeling like those lepers, or like myself when the golf game is getting the best of me, in a current state of helplessness, that is despair, do what the 10 lepers did and what David did. Simply turn to the only one that can be of help. That's right. And that's God. Never forget who the source of help and mercy comes from, or as the great writer Charles Spurgeon once said, know what you are seeking, and more importantly, know from whom to seek it. Remember, and acknowledge as Arnold Palmer did, that without God and all that He has created, we can do nothing. To which I would add, while religion may be the course to blessings, may we who claim to be followers of Jesus Christ never forget that only He is the source from which those blessings spring. Amen? Well, how about you? At this point of your life, where are you to focus your money that you've saved for retirement and realize that you need to enjoy this stuff before it's too late? Or worse yet, what about that recent mousetrap someone from the financial world promised you and it hasn't turned out to do anything but create more worry? Well, if that's you, I will bet you a trip to Ireland that the reason you are worried, the reason you feel like the latest mousetrap is just another sales pitch, is because you don't have a written game plan. You see, armed with a written game plan and backed by a local retirement planning firm such as Tony Walker Financial, someone who has literally helped thousands of savers worry less about money, the better mousetrap is never going to help you. There's only one way to find out if we can be of help to you right now, and we call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. That's right, where you and I will talk by phone, get a brief understanding of where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. And if I think we can be of help, we're going to set up a no-obligation, in-person appointment, that's right, with myself to see if we can be of help. And it's easy to do. You just click on that Let's Get Started button or give us a call at 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program, but you remember between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.